Oh, Jesus. Oh,
And at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to Farmington School Board meeting, March 22nd. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public participation? Jen, is anybody on?
We have a couple people on. Just put into the chat that if they would like to participate, please indicate so. So if anyone would like to participate, please unmute yourself at this time, present your name and your address for a roll.
We'll give that a couple minutes, but for now, we'll move on to minutes.
So we have added February 8th. We had already approved the minutes for, but there was one non-public session that was missed in the packet, so that was added back in. That's why you have just one from that date that's kind of hanging out there alone.
So just for the record, Superintendent, there were no errors, corrections, or omissions in any of the minutes we approved, correct?
Yes, it's just that that needed to be.
That one was missing from the package. Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the minutes of November 2nd, 2020 public session, along with non-public session 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We got a Joel, because I was going to abstain. We need a majority.
Joel, are you on?
Joel was here for a minute and then he clicked off after a couple of minutes. I just sent him another message to make sure he's connecting okay.
2 to 1?
Well, right now we have 3 in. We have a majority, so we're still good.
Two
The majority of those present.
Okay, and I'll keep reaching out to him in the
Okay.
background.
2 in favor, 1 abstention.
I'll make a motion that we approve the public session minutes of March 8th, along with non-public session 1, 2, and 3, or 1 and 2 for March 8th.
Joel's just joined us again.
Okay.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I'll abstain.
And I'll make a motion to approve the February 8th, 2021 non-public session 3 minutes as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
So
3 in favor, 1 abstention.
3-0, 1 abstention. Okay. Thank you.
For reports, we have learning loss.
Okay, actually, there is an amendment of minutes for the
Oh, yeah.
public session. So that amendment of minutes is to include the non-public 3 that got left out of the public minutes. That's the amendment that's in
Okay.
that section.
Do you want that as a separate motion?
Yes, because that's the public session. That one's being amended,
Okay, what was the date on that, just so I don't have to...
February 8th.
February 8th.
So if you look at
I'll make a motion that,
it's the second page of the agenda.
I'll make a motion that the February 8th public minutes reflect the non-public session that we just approved.
Second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
3 in favor, 1 abstention.
Got it, thank you.
So for reports, we have learning loss. Tim, would you like to start off on that?
I'm going to start out for the public. The board convened a Learning Loss and Truancy Committee to try to look ahead as to what we can do for any learning loss that came with the COVID-19 conditions. And what I want to kind of say on learning loss is learning loss isn't necessarily a direct result of COVID in itself. It commonly occurs when a student leaves the district in June for summer vacation and during the period before they come back in September. So the committee was comprised of Mr. Whitehouse and myself, Superintendent of Schools, Diana Donito, Misty, and the three principals or representatives from the three schools at the admin level. And what we tried to look at was educational data, truancy data, our federal funding, and what we could do to get better with the system and what tools we could provide our teaching staff to help them out. One of the things that I want to capitalize on in the learning loss is this is no reflection on our instructional staff, our teaching staff, our paraeducation, everybody within the district, from the top to bottom, has had a lot thrown at them. And there's some of our employees that obviously, and I don't blame them, didn't like some of what we threw at them. But the bottom line is they did it, and they did it very well. So this is tools coming out of what we just went through to get the kids better. And our first recommendation, which I'll turn back to Josh, is what's called a learning management system, and Josh can explain why we as board members out of the committee are recommending full board action on these 8 action items.
So for the learning management system, one of the gaps identified was one of the gaps identified. And the reason why it's so important is it allows both staff and administrators to have a snapshot view in real time, if data is properly entered, into how our schools are doing at any given point. And we can identify trends with grading, multiple data points that allow us to identify issues and solve them as soon as possible. It will be capable of reporting real-time data while parsing FERPA-protected data, so there won't be FERPA violations. Recommendations and pricing should come from the administration for final consideration by the board. Financing through ESSER 1 and 2 and a timeline for implementation, if the board decides it should be prioritized tonight. And with that, the next item was truant officer, which was one of the high points of the committee, and I turn back to Tim to go through that.
So one of the things that I'm asking the board to consider very strongly is to allow the superintendent of schools to develop a separate truancy officer position from our admin staff, part-time at about 20 hours a week. The superintendent would be responsible for creating the job description and qualifications, getting those back to the board, and the salary. To recruit and retain the competent person has to be decided based on her recommendations by the board. Within hiring a truant officer, there needs to be a flow of communication within the district. So the superintendent would be responsible for the relationship, for instance, between our SRO and our school truancy officer, and how we get that proactive information to our administrative team in time, hopefully identifying and stopping a problem before it becomes an issue. One of the things that I think as a board we need to kind of work towards is, it's fairly new. We've seen the cooperation of the police department. I think we need to do 2 things. One is memorialize, and there's been draft format coming to the board, but memorialize our agreement with the town on who's going to prosecute in adult court. And then the other thing that the board has to look at is if this becomes an unsustainable burden on the town, then we need to have further discussion on how we're gonna react. So truant officer is definitely needed. I think it's long overdue. It's not just it's been enhanced by COVID, but not necessarily a result by COVID. And I think one of the most important things in my mind, we can't educate children if they're not in school, and they need to be in school. So our next topic was the social worker, and I'll hand that back to Josh.
So this board has shown a great deal of support for continuing the social worker position and has agreed to fund the position with federal funding. The social worker position adds valued services by working with the truancy team to identify societal problems which are causing our children to fall behind. And they provide proactive interventions to help children and families thrive. This position also deals with the additional societal problems facing families that are resulting in or in addition to the learning loss within the district. For the period covered in the grant, and if possible, the students would benefit by having this program increased to 5 days a week at a contract price. And this recommendation for increased hours is supported by the high truancy numbers. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to Tim for the summer school program. Bill?
Just to let you know, too, we did make an inquiry as to whether our current contracted service provider would be able to fulfill that 5 days a week, and right now that's an affirmative.
Great.
At the same costing?
Obviously, the hourly rate would be higher, but they would be able to do.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the hourly rate would be the same, but it's more hours.
Okay, so no additional cost other than the additional hours at this particular point in time?
That's my understanding. They're going to get us an updated contract for that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So the next area that we talked about is realistically with the amount of planning that's involved in this, our first big intervention, if you want to call it that, would be summer school program this year. And we're asking that the board authorize the superintendent of schools to develop an intensive summer learning program for students who have not thrived or students who can benefit from substantial educational services during the summer months. One of the things the superintendent and the admin team brought to the table was the creation of a partnership between the school district and community action partners to create a combined program, and the benefits coming into the district is CAP would be able to handle our food services during the day, and potentially through this agreement there would be an after summer school program. And I think where this comes in that's pretty huge is services that we haven't been able to offer during COVID, in that if a child comes to summer school, parents drop them off, they're able to go to work for the working parents, and there's an after-school care program element built in so that they can now leave work and come back and get their children. And I think that adds a lot of benefit to our working parents. Want to have some discussions in non-public, just so it's not secret squirrel. I'll put it out here. On our wages and benefits of our summer school personnel. And then within this summer school program, and we previously talked about the learning management system, not that it may not be online by then, but we need to adopt a database monitoring program of summer school where kind of on day one, everybody kind of gets a primary test, and we can follow in real time how our students are thriving over the summer. And the purpose of that is as we're trying to replace some of the lost learning, we can see where those points are that they need additional help or maybe a different way of teaching that our teachers do. The program, as the superintendent develops it, should encompass the district's hottest areas of where we've had the learning loss. Primarily, we're looking at an English and a math component right now, but those numbers haven't, or those subject areas really haven't been hardened until the board gives approval. So with that, we've got a broadband internet access within the district, and I'll hand that back to Josh.
This one's short and sweet. This is that the board will authorize the superintendent of schools to upgrade the district bandwidth from 1 gigabit to a 10 gigabit system, along with the infrastructure necessary to handle that bandwidth. It'll be valuable to handle smoother integration of online programs. Some issues were identified during the initial implementation of online schools during COVID-19. And this is an important step in the right direction to solving those problems. We will also be better prepared to handle a competency-based curriculum if we move in that direction. And with that, I'll hand it back to Tim to handle computer upgrades and staff.
If everybody remembers, when this board was first elected, we came to the table and made a significant amount of budget cuts. And some of those items that were affected during those budget cuts were some of our anticipated computer hardware upgrades of our teachers' equipment. If you don't have good equipment, it makes it a little harder to teach. So one of the things that came out of this committee that we're recommending is that the superintendent present to the board a budget for what we need to get our staff computer needs up to date. And that should happen, in my mind, sooner than later. And Josh, did you want me to cover 7 and 8?
Yeah, if you could.
Okay. 7 is after-school programs, and after-school fall programs, and it really hasn't been deep dived into the committee yet. Kind of where I'm putting out this is a couple of years back, and I can't put a date on it, but for one reason or another, the after-school bus was discontinued. So we're looking to catch up on some of the learning loss over the summer months, and we want to continue that momentum by offering after-school educational support and identifying what the benefits of those pieces would be kind of in place. So kind of what I'm looking for the board is there's an awful lot of time and effort that goes into that process. Kind of direction of, as a board, those are areas that we kind of want to look at in a fall after-school program. We think it'll benefit our students, so that as the committee is mapping out what this functions need in the fall, we're using our time wisely and not spending time on something that the board may not necessarily approve. And then lastly, and kind of tied in with the fall recommendations in the summer school, is on a prior board vote, we authorized the purchase out of federal money of 2 school buses. And we're looking again to kind of see direction from the board as we have the summer school program and as we have the fall program, fall predominantly a late bus, summer school, what are our transportation potential that we can offer students? And again, that's going to come from the superintendent, but there's an awful lot of work that has to be accomplished in these areas that I'm kind of looking for a sense of the board to say, yep, absolutely, we want transportation. Bring us the proposal for final approval so that we know as we go through our future sessions with the administrative staff, et cetera, that we're capitalizing on the time that we're investing in it and coming out with a product that is going to have the wide board support. And kind of in closing, I want to say that I've sat on a lot of committees. This is probably one of the most valuable ones that I've had the honor of sitting on. I think there's been an awful lot of work put in by the administrators that attended these meetings. I think everybody was upfront, communicated well, productive, and I think going down this roadmap and listening to their concerns or what their problems that they're seeing in the district, I think this is going to push us ahead in the state. I think we're going to be leading by example, and I'm pretty proud of the work product that's come out so far. So with that, I guess we'll open it up for any questions. And
Any questions? Phil?
I'll start by making a motion to accept all the recommendations as presented.
Second. I do have questions or comments, but
Discussion? Ruth Ellen?
My question on number 7 with the before and after school programming. When we did this over the summer and into last year, or before things kind of fell apart.
before COVID.
We have, pre-COVID,
Yep.
we did partner with CAP for that before and after school programming as well. I'm just looking, is that
That's
a direction that I'm allowed to go ahead and
Yep.
explore?
That's
Okay.
kind of where my thought was going. I wanted to, particularly in the fall, I wanted to send that back to committee. I think there's some value. We really didn't discuss it, but I didn't want to send it back to committee if the board was going to say, no, we're not interested in that partnership, because that would have
Certainly.
been.
Understood, yep.
But that's kind of where, when I put it out for a consensus, that's kind of the feel I wanted to get from the board is, does the board feel it's valuable? Let's finish our homework on it and get the formalized contractual stuff that we have to kind of
Nice.
move forward with.
My question was along the lines of, as we're working on summer programming, it's certainly a natural offshoot to say, and here's how we're going to track into fall, but if that wasn't on the table, I wanted to make sure that conversation didn't head too far down the road, so.
Yep.
Okay,
No,
thank
I think
you.
that's certainly where Josh and I were coming from and kind of going through the board, but
while we're on 7, I had made some notes that from observation, I think that summer school and running it in that fashion in partnership with CAP is going to give us a good idea of whether or not this effort is stable, whether it needs some correction before we hit fall. And I think that the child care may or will help with the truancy issue.
Right.
Because I think that if they don't have that after-school care, and they have just a few hours, latchkey kids and things like that, they get used to running around after they get out of summer school, and then it grows a little bit more, and it grows a little bit more. And all of a sudden, it doesn't seem as scary to these kids to be truant. So the combination of in-class learning and being taken care of, if you will, being assisted, after that may send some of our potential truants in a different direction. I mean, it's a win if it happens.
And I will say, we do have a track record of having done a successful before and after school program with CAP prior to. So it's not an unknown. I guess the other question with that, if we're looking at that combination for summer, the only other piece that I would say may be our sticking point right now is getting enough staffing to run it. Our people are tired, but we do have some who are willing, and I think we're going to be able to run something that's fairly robust. I'm hoping that we can get more people interested in where we're headed with this, but I also know that there are folks that just are looking for a break too. And so I want to be careful that people don't feel railroaded into this. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And I'm really hoping that this is going to be an opportunity to do things kind of out of the box, and really do some things that are a whole lot more innovative than they may have necessarily tried during the regular school year. This is kind of the sandbox where we get to play a little bit and really make it fun Not that school shouldn't be fun anyway, but really to see what's possible in a very microcosm type environment that works. So,
How many staff have expressed interest?
do you have those numbers, Diana? Thank you.
I know we've had discussions about that before, but
Yeah,
There may
we
be
have a
more.
few more numbers now. Oops.
While she's looking, can I ask, how long does summer school traditionally? What do you?
It's 4 weeks,
Okay, so you're talking probably July?
July.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Answers one of my questions.
Typically, we start right after the 4th and then do the those 4 weeks.
Tim, did you have anything else?
No, I'm pretty good on that. Since we can't do fireworks anymore, we might as well start before the 4th.
Just get a permit.
We have 9 at the high school, that includes paraeducators. I need at least 2 special ed people to run the special ed component, and I have those. At Henry Wilson, we have 8, 3 of which are special ed people, which we need for this year, and then that would be we have 15.
Wow.
A number of them are paraeducators. We still need more paraeducators for the summer program. This number also includes some guidance counselors, some music teachers, so some of the different specialty areas. So that's what we have so far.
I think one of the things I didn't mention is summertime is normally when we get a lot of our maintenance projects done. So our vision of the program is we may have 2 weeks of summer school at one building, and because of construction projects that have to happen, we may move it the next week to a different building, but it'll be within this general campus. And I suspect we'll have a schedule out prior to running it, so parents will know where their children are going.
We're also looking at pop-up tents so that we can move some pieces outside as well.
Yep.
Because frankly, outside is more fun during the summer anyway.
Can be.
And make sure that we can be as flexible as possible around whatever needs to happen in the buildings too.
Learning, if I might, learning management systems, how available are they? What kind of training does it take to get an LMS on and running?
They're software packages. If I had a PO tomorrow, I could probably, flip the switch on being able to get into it, within the week. The issue is getting it set up. The same way as that it's taking almost 6 months to cut over our financial package. It's going to be a very similar construct to get a learning management system up, and there are still pieces that need to be built to populate that. So the financial system, they're spending at least 2 days a week dedicated on just that. We can't take teachers 2 days a week to just do this. So it's going to be a process. It's really, to get it built out is going to be probably the better part of a year anyway, getting things up and in and over and done. But as far as getting it started, we can have it pretty quickly once that, it then is getting those pieces built in, and there's going to be a lot of foundational work that Jen and Misty and I will have to do before we even get teachers into it.
Yeah, so I was thinking with 10 to 12 weeks left in this school year, is your rollout date September-ish or further?
That may be when we would have teachers start using and starting to get up into, but it's still going to take time beyond that because there are pieces of the curriculum that need to be built even to put into it. So it's not something that's just flip a switch, do a quick little data dump, and we're good to go.
Okay.
It's going to take time.
So by September 1, do you think it will be ready and implemented for, say, reports regarding grading or?
I think by September 1, we will have people in it starting to use it, starting to look to see what they can add in. There will still be pull-through from Power School, so it's not just a matter of all the reporting comes out of the LMS. What it does is it gives us a more robust structure to pull pieces from here, integrate it with this, and then create a report that we can actually use.
Right.
So, but some of those pieces in the LMS system still have to be built out with what the teachers are going to be inputting. So it'll be a start, but are we going to have robust reports come September 15th? No. I'll tell you that up front. No, we won't.
When do you foresee that could be implemented by?
I think by the end of the first semester, you'll start to see some pieces that we can start giving you, this is what it looks like, this is what's possible. As far as finishing the rest of the curricular pieces that need to go in there as well, that's going to take a year or more process to do because we are still building while we're implementing.
Right.
So it's not going to be, it's not in place here that I can just go,
It's not like taking your cell phone to Verizon saying, I want a new one.
So
More like building an airplane while you're in the air.
yeah.
that's easy.
Rosemary, could I chime in a little bit here?
That's up to you,
Sure,
Mr.
Misty.
Chair. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I would just say, we would definitely have to have an implementation plan because you couldn't rip the Band-Aid off, especially for reporting, and especially for the high school reporting because we have to do a lot of work in terms of the transcript in those pieces. What I would say is, initially, it could come on for it to be used for instructional design. I would have to put in the learning progressions into whichever management system was chosen. And then it would take over time and I would say each school would really need to pace out when they wanted to go live with reporting out to parents and students. So it's going to be probably a 2-year implementation process across the district for it to be fully functional. That's the general time frame that happens in most districts. So just, it's going to be, we have to pace that out well and make sure that because each level has sort of different beasts to slay to get it all completely in synergy. So I would say 2 years minimally for it to be fully functional.
Thank you. Tim?
Superintendent, kind of correct me if I'm wrong here, but for the people that don't understand the learning management system, there's actually several modules of that are going to encompass our entire school district. And one of our hardships that I think I recognized during learning loss is there's no real-time way to identify a truancy issue by building, by class, in the system we're using now without a lot of work. So if Power School is going to talk to our LMR within the beginning stages, wouldn't it make sense that in a fairly quick matter of time, for those two elements that are really red-hot issues now, we're going to have an easier time identifying real-time truancy or half-point truancy, and we're going to have a very easy way of identifying in real time, hey, this child might need an intervention.
That part I don't see is going to be as much of an issue, but when you're
Okay.
talking about the whole learning management system being fully functional, that will be a process.
And that makes sense to take a long period of time because at some point the district's going to be moving in a competency-based direction. So if we're going to do this process, we might as well do it one time and do it correctly.
Yep.
But based on if I may, based on the fact that we've really recognized learning loss are there components of the LMS that would, 2 years, we don't have 2 years, we don't. Are there parts of it that we can bring in that will start allowing us as a board, you as admin, to recognize potential
There will be
failure?
pieces, and I think one of the things that I need to clarify is that while we can get data, I can run a report that says I have, X listing every kid who has a D or an F, or every kid who has a truancy issue. But for me to have a board level report to then turn and give to you that says, these students are remote, I can do those individual reports, it doesn't do this. I have to cross-reference them by hand.
Okay.
Whether or not the LMS will give us some of that functionality, we still then have to go back through, because they're both designed to give reports to people who have that need-to-know level and have the list of kids in front of them. For me to give reporting to, now, if it's all meshed together, it's a whole lot simpler for me to go, here's the number, and done, without having to do the mesh myself. And that's the big part right now, because to get some of the reports that we gave to Josh and Tim, Paul brought in his stack. Here's what I had to go through to get to this chart of about 4 columns and 5 lines.
And that's what I guess I'm wondering, is within the program itself, can you pick and choose things that would mesh together and bring information, even if the information goes to you because of FERPA, that you could then give a summary report to the board? I don't...
There will be more ways for us to look at data.
Without spending 40 hours on it.
Your mouth to God's ear.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's the thing, and as that rolls, as I envision this, as that rolls, it's going to make the whole process, we're jumping in barefoot. We don't know.
And it's squishy.
And as we start to get a little bit comfortable with it and things, then the rest of the more difficult parts, as Misty referred to, shouldn't be as difficult.
Right. There's still that building out part that needs to happen. There's the learning progressions. It's making sure that not only we input, here's what kids need to know and be able to do, but then we also need to make sure that that is aligning with the assessments that we're using. Does this assessment truly assess what it thinks it does? And are we getting data from those that give us the next step for students? Those are pieces that we're still building out.
Sure.
So.
A motion by Joel to accept their recommendations. There's a second by Mary. Is there any more discussion?
I just have one more question.
Mary?
Sorry. Item 3, social worker. My notes, I said need. Do we have someone already in the district, somebody already in place that, can we continue a current grant or because to me it's important to have this person know the kids, know the families, and you have continuity there, and is that part and parcel to what? Okay.
That is. It's one of the discussions we had during the committee meetings, is making sure that there's no gap there, and ensuring there's no transition necessary between social workers.
I wasn't eavesdropping, I really
No,
wasn't.
and that was part of the discussion that I had with our provider today, just to see, okay, if this is the direction we're going, what's possible? And right now, it looks like it's doable.
Good, thank you.
So,
Sorry.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Oh, no, Charlie. Unanimous.
Nice work.
Thank you, Mary. So
Oh,
next
thank you.
we have funding sources.
so along with that, I've sent you a link, and I had thought it was already up in the folder, and it was not. So there's a link here just to kind of give you an idea of, along with ESSER, what we have for other funding sources for this whole piece that we're looking at. So it's not just the learning loss pieces, but all of those other potential things that we've talked about and some others that have come up. We have ESSER 1, and what I've given you was the allocation for 2021. The SBSRF has been spent. That is closed. ESSER 2, the amount is there. I've also included the RLIS grant, our
Where are you?
Yeah, I'm
When-
not seeing it.
fund, if you go to your email, there's a link that says funding sources.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, just came through.
Yep. And with that, that should, let's see here.
ROIS, you're talking column F, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's the Title 5B. Title 4A, that's this year's allocation. We will have some monies from E-rate Cat 2, and then we also have an E-rate program for the next 5 years that we can start building out that section of projects. And that's something that Jen and I are meeting on, or one of the things Jen and I are meeting on Wednesday, to see what our next steps are in building out what needs to be done for the 10 gig, and also other pieces for the district that need to be part of that larger expansion plan. So part of that can be done through E-rate. And then ESSER 3 monies, we still haven't seen what we have for funding formulas yet, although it's been suggested it will be similar to what we see in ESSER 2. So I've also given you kind of what can be spent there. The RLIS, I did not put anything listed. That is one fairly small pot of money that we have a lot of latitude as far as where that goes. That is where our community partners, or a portion of that, has been those hours, so that we have additional supports for counseling, for students, for families, that give them direct line to what they have out in the community as well, so that students can be seen here on campus. That's where some of those hours have been in the past. Title 4, we can use for student laptops, software. Hardware is kind of a limited item there. Software, hotspots, musical instruments, STEM, supplies, wellness programming. Things that hit the UA programs can go in Title 4. United Arts. So that's going to be art, music, band,
Cool.
STEM, robotics would potentially fit there, yes. Yep. So that kind of gives you an idea of what else, or where else things can be tucked in as well. So it's, while we have the 1.7, we do have some auxiliary pieces that can supplement.
So has the 1,730,000 in ESSER 2 been confirmed by DOE? Is that a good number?
Yes, it is in the grant. We need to start building that out now.
Okay.
So there are some pieces that
Yeah, in the folder, you'll see the rules for ESSER 2.
I saw that.
Which I put in there, as well as I also threw in there, just for, if you're really, really bored, you can read the ESSER 3 bill that came out.
I did.
It's only about, 400 pages, so your next novel.
600 pages.
623, something like that.
638.
At least we know who read it, Brian.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
ESSER 3 does have a caveat that ESSER 2 does not, in that the amount that we get requires a 20% set aside for
Yep.
learning loss.
Yep.
And so if we were to do a 20% set aside on ESSER 2, it would be $364,000. So kind of keep that in mind as we're going
So this-
forward.
Where we accepted the learning loss recommendations, do you think we'll cover that 20%?
Oh, easily,
Oh.
but that's ESSER 2 and not ESSER 3.
Right.
So, but,
we'll have plenty.
oh yeah, we'll be good.
Great.
Because it's this year and next year that we can be spending this as well. So it's not just in a single year.
Some of the ESSER 3 goes actually into 24, doesn't it? Or
Yes,
is-
ESSER 3 would go beyond, but as I don't have ESSER 3 in a, yes, you have the money yet. I haven't marked that as a spendable.
So The good news with ESSER 3 is the amount of money that's coming back to the state of New Hampshire is double what came back to the state under ESSER 2. The other advantage that I'm seeing in ESSER 3 going through is once we get our allocation, there's additional money available for summer school program. So potentially, if we get X amount of dollars that we're spending for summer school under ESSER 2, in ESSER 3, potentially that'll be additional money. So there's potential for a significant amount of money coming in that's going to allow this district to deal with the learning loss, to deal with the truancy, and hopefully come up with some bang-up results.
And on top of that, on the financial side, what I'm trying to do, and I'm already building, is kind of a future plan, short-term and long-term, where if I can take some future expenses that the district would have and bring it into now, where we can use the grant to use it. For example, HVAC systems, we need to do that. We need to do some cleaning. We need to do some update. We do some. I mean, unfortunately, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's right now it's Henry Wilson's. They're going to get a majority of it, but we're looking at all three buildings, what we can do under this grant. Even windows and doors are covered, so we're looking at improving the window structure. We have some windows that are rotting out of some of these buildings, so we want to make sure we do that. There's some security issues that we're probably going to take care of through the windows. But my goal is to at least get us on a path so we can not have those long-term costs, but some costs we will have to incur in a few years, and we're going to set up a plan to at least fund those a little bit each year, so when those things come, it's not a one-time big hit. It's, for example, our computers they'll hit end of life in 3 or 4 years.
Right, as we've done a large one-to-one initiative with our Chromebooks, which has been wonderful, we're going to have a lot of Chromebooks all crash pretty much simultaneously. So we're going to need to have a plan so that it doesn't become a cliff we can't handle.
And there's certain things I'm going to try to get.
The expended there means that it's what we've been reimbursed for so far. It doesn't mean expended.
So if we were to make or approve expenditures out of ballpark, what's left out of that 362,000?
What, about 100? A little under 100?
It's 100-ish, and we'll have that for you. I've had the grant brought back because there are pieces, because we moved from SBSRF. I need to now rewrite things that had been in ESSER 1. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to have that rewritten for next week, so I can give you, here's what's there and here's what's left.
So if it qualifies under ESSER 1, I'd like to take the learning management system or a big bulk of that expense
We can.
out of ESSER 1 so that
It's done.
that's done.
Yeah.
We're
That
moving
won't be a
forward
problem, yeah.
for budgetary and vision.
I think it will be either ESSER 1, I can do the staff laptops, I can do the learning management. I don't know that I can do both, but I'll look and see where those fall, because those are probably the first two pieces to get. Well, learning management, we're going to have a little bit of a process to get which one. So staff laptops may be a better quick purchase, but we'll see which.
But you can still do, like with learning management, you can do part out of one and part out of
Yes, I
either
could.
two.
Yes, I could. Yep.
Sure can.
Thank you.
Joel, do you have any questions? Okay, with that, we'll move to old business. Nothing?
I don't have any on my list.
Great. New business, the program of studies.
And I believe you have both the program of studies, and there should also be, although I don't see it in my packet, there should be the short, here are the things that changed.
I don't think I've got that one.
I didn't get that one either.
Okay, let me go back and look.
I think that whole thing's got nothing.
See if that. Paul, are you there? Oh dear.
Definitely him.
That's Paul.
It's him.
Paul, it sounds like you need to disconnect and reconnect again. Paul, it sounds like you need to disconnect and reconnect again.
Definitely him.
Alvin.
It's definitely him, yes.
Definitely gonna have to call him Alvin.
Okay, I'm going
He might need a
to,
new laptop.
I'm thinking he really needs a new laptop, yes. I'm going to
Yeah,
share
headsets.
this out with you two. I apologize.
Okay, he's back.
Okay. Let's try that again.
Was it squirrels or Elmer Fudd?
It was
It was
still,
girls, it sounded good.
I like chipmunks.
Sorry about that.
So,
okay, I have just found the document that has the changes on it too, so that you've got kind of the short version. Sending you the link for that. And it's a one-page telling you where the changes are. There are changes on page 3, 4, 12 through 20, 29, 39, and 45. So, I see Josh is in.
Yes. Do you or Paul want to take us through?
Sure. Paul, do you want to do that? Or do you?
Sure. Looking at, I don't have the document in front of me as far
Okay.
as what you have.
Do you want me to
Might be
start it?
easier for you. What's that?
Do you want me to start it then?
Would you please? Because I'm not sure exactly
I can
where
do that.
all the different changes came.
Okay. So on page 3 of the program of studies, there has been a change in the graduation charts as opposed to one reading focused, one writing focused English class. All of our English classes are both reading and writing focused, so rather than trying to differentiate one was one and one's the other, it's embedded in both. So it seemed to be an artificial construct to try to say this class has to be, this is a writing focus versus a reading focus because they read and then they write about what they've read and then they read what they wrote, and it's recursory. So page 4, the 20 state New Hampshire diploma option had already been approved by the board. The description that was approved has been added here as well. Career pathways, pages 12 through 20. These have been updated to align with what the state has suggested as possible career paths, and then the courses that we have that would allow a student to pursue those career paths depending upon what their end goal is. It's certainly not a have to do it this way. It's if you have this in mind, these are classes you should strongly consider. I'll stop there because that's about 20 pages of shifts before I plow on ahead.
Thank you. Is there any
Sure.
questions?
I kind of do. Within the program of studies, once this is approved, where does it go?
This becomes the course catalog for students as they're choosing courses for next year. This is the list of classes that are available.
So are we printing this, or are we giving them to a PDF document? Are we putting it up on the website?
It would be done, it's on the website. Every student has a Chromebook now, so it would be a PDF document that gets put out. Guidance has its own classroom, per se. It would go up in the guidance classroom. It's also on the website. I would prefer not to use the paper and ink if we don't have to go there.
No, I kind of had my reason for asking.
I would say, is it going to cause any issues if we change the mission statement or any of the contents later?
Certainly, if we vote on a change to the mission statement, if it is an electronic document, that's easy enough to amend and change. And I would say if there is a vote to change that, I would assume the vote would also then say, and to amend any documents in which this lives, which is going to take us a bit of time on some of our, obviously older documents that have it as a footnote. We're not going back and changing old minutes or something, but I don't see waiting for this, for that process. I think it's amendable.
Okay.
Yes. Josh? Okay. My only concern in reading through this is I'm a parent, and I'm a parent of a student, and I'm looking at this as a document that a student is using to map how they're going to move forward their high school year. And I've read it a couple of times, and I'm having a hard time following it as a parent. So if I'm having a hard time following the flow of information, is this an easy document for high school kids? Are they smarter than me? So I'm almost wondering if within our program of studies, and instead of having a lot of material that's in other places within our documentation, is there a way to do and to keep it simple and say, these are the classes that we're having available at our high school. These are our classes that are available through our tech center. These are our classes that are available to us through VLAX. And any combination of those classes, here's what you need to graduate, and here's kind of that flow of what we're going to recommend you do in year 1, 2, 3, and 4.
There are other. This is the comprehensive document that we're required to produce.
Mm-hmm.
When students get to that process, they're given a single sheet that, as a sophomore, these are the classes that you would be eligible to take. Now, if you've taken a prerequisite, we'll pull a class off another sheet for you if you are advanced, or if you need to retake, we'll pull one off. But these are the typical sophomore sheets. These are the ones that fit. These are VLAX, these are hours, these are ELO opportunities. You can write your own. There is an encapsulated sheet, and the counselors work through this with the kids. It's not done in a vacuum. It is part of the advisory program. They are going to be meeting with their advisors and with their counselors to go through that part. So, the state says you need to have course descriptions, you need to outline all of this. It is part of what we have to give to colleges to explain all of those pieces. They look at our program of studies, but then we also produce the one-pager for colleges that kind of says, here's what we have in a nutshell, here's all advanced courses, here are the pathways, here's our grading scale, and here's what's available for extracurriculars. And that's also usually replicated. It's on the website, and it's typically in the handbook as well.
So with that, and that answers a lot of my concern, but within that, and I understand from year to year, some of the class offerings may change based on what we have for employees. But does that 9, 10, 11, 12 document kind of exist now for our next school year, or is this something that, when does that process start with guidance?
They actually would like to have started it last week, if at all possible.
Okay.
Typically, they will start the process of scheduling for next year in March.
Okay, so, and I respect the amount of work that went into this and what Paul put into it. Does it make sense as an appendix that if this document's going to be up on the web and parents are going to look at it, that in the appendix, those worksheets that we're using are added to it as an appendix, so when I get to the back page, I'm looking at it and say, oh, okay, I understand that, and
I think that's certainly doable.
I mean, I'd kind of like to hear, Paul's dealing with the parents, I'm not. I'd kind of like to hear I don't want to put work on if it's not going to serve a purpose. I just kind of throwing it out there.
So Paul, I think what it's just, those course selection sheets, could those be included in the back as an appendix? I think that's easy enough to do.
Yeah, I would agree. That would be easy enough to do.
Okay. With that, then, I'm gonna move to approve the FHS Program of Studies with the caveat that the guidance course selection worksheets be added in as an appendix.
Second.
Motion and a second. For discussion, one of the things that came to mind, this is a little off topic, but not very. How does the district engage with students that are doing really well to ensure they have a pathway to progress in an advanced manner?
I mean, each student meets with guidance counselor individually, and so it's not just, I mean, there will be a kind of a group explanation of, here's this year's program of studies, here's what this looks like. But there's also those individual sit down, let's look at where you are, what the courses are, what is it you want to do, how do we get where you want to go? And so there's that opportunity for those individual conversations as well. It's not just a, well, you entered the school this year, therefore these are the 4 classes that you're going to take. We're not looking to make it be nearly that pigeonholed.
Right.
And through the ELO process, we have opportunities for students, particularly ones who are very interested in a particular field, to design what it is they want to study, how they want to get there. If they need to demonstrate a writing competency and they want to develop a magazine, or they want, I mean, if they need to do a math competency and they want to work with an engineer and show some of those hands-on type of applications, that's doable. So I think it's more, there's a lot more possibilities than there aren't.
Right.
And it's opening up those possibilities to kids so that they can see what else can be. And the fun part of this is that I get to sit, how do I say yes? How do we make this happen?
Right. How many students do you think participate in the ELO process?
It's really getting back off the ground this year, and COVID's made it tough for some of those community connections to continue. I have a handful that have continued with pieces, and we've been doing a lot more with the internship part of that this year. As far as the self-designed, I don't think there's been as much because we haven't had as many opportunities to just go tap someone in the community this year. That having been said, this year will be in the rearview mirror at some point. And really looking to be able to make that more robust. And I would love to get to the point where I need full-time or multiple ELO coordinators to really make this happen.
Is there any more discussion on FHS Program of Studies?
I'm good.
With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous.
Thank you, Paul.
Welcome.
Next is Policy BDE.
And this was in the packet actually for last week. We didn't get there. This is not a required policy, but it's a recommended policy in regard to committees and delegates to committees. And pretty much as you reorganized the board last week, you more or less followed this anyway. But this is not a policy that we currently have. So it's an optional policy should you choose to adopt it. But I had put it in more or less as a, if this is what you're going to be doing anyway, did you want the policy to shore up what you're doing?
Under policy, okay, I see it. Was that added today?
It was added today because it was in last week's folder. It was in there, and then brought forward.
I think it was brought forward by functioning. by filling the
I think
spot.
we actually went by this when we did our committee.
You did, but we don't,
We don't have a
the
formal.
policy has never been formally adopted. This is pretty much what you followed.
The only difference I see is standing and special committees and delegations shall be appointed by the chairperson of the board and approved by a vote of majority of the board. Generally, it's appointed by whomever on the board.
Well, so for instance, with the standing committee of learning loss, that was you brought it to the board. And he said, "Yup, let's have a vote." So, he could have said, "We need to have this." You brought it as a suggestion to the chair. Either way, it works.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve it as a first read. I'd like the chairman's input
Yep.
before we do it as a final adoption. And we don't have him here tonight.
Second? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Signing of MS 22.
Hold on before you go past
Stop.
the policies.
We still have one more policy, right? For Title IX?
There are two policies there, yes. So under the policies for Title IX, I gave you kind of a quick explanation, and then there are two policies in there. One is a required, one is a recommended. And then I gave you a list of the policies that we have currently in place. So give you a little bit of background. Last summer, there was a major overhaul to the Title IX legislation. Title IX is gender equity, but it also falls under not just do you have a sports team for girls if you have one for guys, but it's also sexual harassment policies and the like. With that, at the end of June or mid-June, we adopted the latest of the School Boards Association policies ahead of the July 1, you got to have this done by date. We were good. Except they updated a new policy in August. And so the policies that we have in place are still needing to be in place. They've added one more that is ACAC, that is the very long, these are the formal pieces that pull everything together. It is boilerplate. It's not something we can really play with. And then the GBEB staff conduct is an additional policy that is referenced in ACAC. Hate the labels. It's an optional policy. It goes along, there's a staff ethics policy and a staff conduct. We currently have the staff ethics policy, which is GBEA, but this is GBEB. So because it's referenced in the School Boards Association policy, I placed it here as well. We are needing both of these as adopted amendments to our policy folder to be in compliance. We need to have these here. We don't have a whole lot of choice in the tweaking part of it, but I absolutely understand that they are somewhat lengthy and hefty reads.
So, just in my mind, we have an administrator who's in charge of Title IX
Yes.
grievances, correct? And
That would be Mrs. Denito, yes.
so if we had a violation,
Yeah.
who would be the investigator?
So it would be, investigator would be an assistant principal level, decision maker is a principal, our coordinator is Mrs. Denito, I would be the appeal. And that is,
So under that chain, Mrs. Denito stays separate from, okay.
Yes.
That's the only thing I had to ask.
yep,
Is there urgency tonight to pass these tonight, or do we want to do a first read, second read? What's your recommendation from your office?
My recommendation would be
Tonight?
tonight.
Okay. I'll make a motion to waive second reading on policy GBEB, staff conduct, and ACAC Title IX, sexual harassment policy and grievance process, and accept them as written.
Second?
Motion by Tim, second by Mary. Any further discussion? With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Now we can do signing of MS.
Yes, you can.
Okay, I have the MS-22, which I have to submit to the DRA within 20 days after our vote, so I am going to hand this around. I have your names already on the front, you just need to sign it. Basically, all this is our budget that was approved at the vote, the election this year.
And for those who are not present, I can send that electronically for signatures in the morning.
Well, as long as it's a quorum.
That's true, you have a quorum. So
Please.
if you would like very much to sign it anyway, I can send it to you electronically. Do you need a pen?
I do.
You're not going to let me
This
throw
looks
something
familiar,
at Tim?
Josh.
Oh, please. Only if I can sit back down.
Mary throws one up at Tim.
He's got one.
I got my back.
You just wanted to throw one at him.
That's right. Getting even.
And while we're doing that, the pre-bid approval lighting upgrade.
Yep, that should be in your folder. This is a very vague, I guess, how I'm inputting this, because I foresee myself going 2 or 3 times probably in front of the board, going over this RFP, because I know it's very complicated and there's certain things you want in it, certain things you don't. I spoke at length with Larry this morning on how we're going to kind of craft this as a rough draft and then bring it to you a couple times just to see what direction you're looking for, how in-depth you want it to be. If you want it to be just lighting, do you want it to be lighting and then measuring the efficiency, everything that goes along with it, because we've also kind of want to scope this out right so we get the right, it's like garbage in, garbage out. I want to make sure I get the right information out to these vendors to bring it back. So that's why this is as vague as it is, because I'm just looking for some guidance on what you were looking for, and I can bring it back, and then, with a rough draft, you look at it and say, all right, I like this, I don't like that. Let's change the direction a little bit and, give it a few times before we get it right, because this is going to be relatively complicated as far as what we're looking for.
Tim?
A question and a comment. And my question is, and we talked about it, but have we gone to legal on what we have to do if the board goes in the direction of a lease program? How do we cure what was missing at deliberative session? And I guess my second comment tonight is, I'd like to table what's in here, Brian, if you're looking for direction, because
This is Charlie.
when it comes to the building trades, it's kind of Charlie's baby, and I think he'd have a lot more to bring to the table than I would.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes?
is that a motion, Tim?
Yeah, I'll make that a motion.
Yeah, I was gonna make that motion, so I'll second that.
The motion and a second. Any discussion?
So you're tabling to the 29th?
Yes.
Yeah, we should be able to get it out to 29th.
Okay. And I should have a written response at that point too,
Okay.
from legal.
That'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. And that concludes the Farmington School Board meeting tonight. Is there any public participation?
No one has posted anything in the chat. If anyone participating would like to share something with the board, please unmute yourself and identify you for the board. Thank you. There's nothing listed in the chat this time.
Is there a motion to go non-public?
I'll make that
I'll make a
motion.
motion to go into non-public under 91 A3:2 ABC nomination and resignations.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 No manifest signing.